3:47 a.m. February 14th, 2026. A dirt road 18 miles southeast of Boise, Idaho. An FBI hostage rescue team operator keyed his radio. No signal. He tried again. Dead air. The encrypted tactical frequency that had worked flawlessly during rehearsal was gone. Jammed. 47 federal agents from 3 agencies sat in armored vehicles on a frozen road. No communications, no coordination capability, and somewhere ahead, behind berms of compacted earth and reinforced concrete, 23 people with converted automatic weapons knew they were coming. The largest sovereign citizen standoff since the 1990s had just begun. It would last 11 days. The operation that led federal agents to this frozen stretch of Idaho rangeland started 5 months earlier in a place no one expected. An online marketplace. Not on the dark web, on a standard encrypted messaging platform accessible to anyone with a phone. September 2025, FBI Boise Field Office. Special Agent Diana Kowalski reviewed a referral from the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms, and Explosives. A TF had flagged an advertisement in a Telegram channel called Western Shield Network. The ad offered access to a survival community on private land in Idaho. Cost of entry? $15,000 in Bitcoin. The listing promised firearms training, underground shelter access, food storage for 36 months, and legal separation from federal jurisdiction. That last phrase caught Kowalski's attention. Legal separation from federal jurisdiction. Sovereign citizen language. A movement the FBI had classified as a domestic terrorism threat since 2010. The channel had 4,200 subscribers. The account posting the advertisements used the handle Sejant Prepare. No real name, no photo. Payment only in cryptocurrency routed through 3 separate wallets. Kowalski submitted a request for expanded investigation. The request included ATF's original referral, screenshots of the Telegram advertisements, and blockchain analysis showing the 3 cryptocurrency wallets had received a combined $1.8 million in deposits over the previous 14 months. The request was approved within 72 hours. Case designation, Operation Iron Furrow. The first break came from procurement records. A TF traced a bulk purchase of 80 lower receivers, the serialized component of an AR-15, to a federally licensed firearms dealer in Nampa, Idaho. The buyer, a man named Russell Greer, 44 years old. Former United States Army Military Occupational Specialty, 92A Automated Logistical Specialist. Stationed at Fort Campbell from 2004 to 2012. Honorable discharge. Greer had no criminal record, no prior contact with law enforcement. He held a valid Idaho concealed carry permit and owned a registered hunting rifle. On paper, he was unremarkable, but the 80 lower receivers were not unremarkable. No individual buyer purchases 80 lower receivers for personal use. That quantity signals one of 2 things: illegal resale or organized stockpiling. A TF pulled Greer's purchase history across all federal firearms licensees in Idaho, Montana, and Oregon. Over the previous 26 months, Greer had purchased 230 firearms through legal channels. Rifles, shotguns, pistols. Always below the threshold that would trigger mandatory multiple sale reporting for long guns. Always from different dealers, always paying cash. The pattern was methodical. 1 purchase per dealer per month. Rotating through 14 different stores across 3 states. A logistics specialist running a logistics operation. October 2025. FBI surveillance teams established observation posts around a 140-acre property in Elmore County, Idaho. The property was a former cattle ranch purchased in March 2023 through a shell company registered in Wyoming. Purchase price, $680,000. The company, Mountain Basin Holdings, LLC, listed a registered agent in Cheyenne. The beneficial owner traced through Wyoming Secretary of State filings and bank records, Russell Greer. Aerial imagery from the first overflight revealed changes to the property, that did not match standard agricultural use. 3 large berms of compacted earth, each approximately 8 feet tall, positioned in an L shape around the main structures. A series of concrete pads where no building stood, trenching consistent with underground construction. 2 satellite dishes, a communications tower approximately 40 feet tall. The ranch house and 3 outbuildings remained, but new construction was visible. A metal-sided structure roughly 60 by 40 feet with no windows, and what appeared to be reinforced vehicle barriers at both access roads. If you're learning something new, hit the like button. It helps more people find this video. Kowalski requested a more detailed technical assessment. The FBI's engineering research facility in Quantico analyzed enhanced satellite imagery and identified features consistent with a fortified compound. The berms could serve as fighting positions or blast barriers. The trenching pattern suggested a tunnel network connecting at least 3 structures. The communications tower was consistent with a high-frequency radio setup capable of long-range transmission. The FBI also identified thermal signatures indicating underground spaces with active climate control. People were living below ground. November 2025. The investigation expanded. FBI cyber analysts working with cryptocurrency tracing firm Chainalysis mapped the financial network behind Western Shield. The $1.8 million in Bitcoin deposits came from 147 unique wallet addresses. Cross-referencing blockchain data with known exchange accounts identified 63 individuals who had sent payments. They were spread across 6 western states: Idaho, Montana, Oregon, Washington, Nevada, and Utah. Not all were living at the compound. Some had paid for what Greer called remote membership, access to supplies, training manuals, and a guaranteed spot at the compound when the collapse happens. Others had visited for weekend training sessions. A smaller group, estimated at 20 to 25 people, lived on the property full-time. Background checks on the identified members revealed a pattern. 14 had military service records. 7 had prior arrests, mostly misdemeanor offenses: trespassing, failure to appear, minor drug possession. 3 had active warrants. 2 had been flagged by the FBI's Domestic Terrorism Operations Unit for posts on sovereign citizen forums advocating armed resistance to federal authority. But the detail that escalated Operation Iron Furrow from a firearms investigation to a national security priority came from an unexpected source: the Defense Criminal Investigative Service. DCIS had been tracking a separate case: thefts of military equipment from Fort Liberty, North Carolina. Between January and July 2025, 12 AN/PVS-14 monocular night vision devices had disappeared from a supply warehouse. Each unit was valued at approximately $3,500. The thefts had been attributed to an unidentified soldier with warehouse access. In November 2025, DCIS investigators recovered one of the stolen devices during an unrelated traffic stop in Pocatello, Idaho. The driver, a 26-year-old former Army specialist named Kevin Burge, told investigators he had purchased the night vision device from a guy at a survival camp in the desert. Burge's description of the location matched the Elmore County property. DCIS shared their findings with the FBI. Kowalski now had evidence linking the compound to stolen military equipment, a federal crime carrying up to 10 years imprisonment. The case was no longer just about illegal firearms. It involved theft of government property, potential espionage implications, and a network that had recruited active-duty military personnel. December 2025, FBI requested and received authorization to deploy a confidential human source inside the compound. The source, designated CHS-1140, was an existing FBI informant with a background that would be credible to Greer's organization. Military veteran, survivalist community connections, no law enforcement record, visible through standard background checks. CHS-1140 made contact through the Western Shield Telegram channel, expressed interest in full membership, and paid the $15,000 Bitcoin entry fee with funds provided by the FBI. In the second week of December, CHS-1140 arrived at the compound for an intake process that Greer called orientation. The informant's first report, transmitted via a concealed device during a supply run to Boise, described a compound far more developed than aerial surveillance had suggested. The tunnel system was extensive. 3 primary tunnels connected the main house, the windowless metal building, and 2 underground bunkers. The tunnels were reinforced with timber framing and corrugated steel. Lighting and ventilation were powered by a combination of diesel generators and a solar array concealed under camouflage netting. The windowless building served as an armory and workshop. CHS-1140 reported seeing racks of rifles, including at least a dozen with modifications consistent with full automatic conversion. Ammunition was stored in military surplus cans, stacked floor to ceiling along one wall. In a separate locked room, the informant observed what appeared to be 40-pound bags of tannerite, a binary explosive compound legal to purchase, but illegal to assemble in large quantities without a federal explosives license. The night vision devices were stored in a cabinet in Greer's personal quarters. CHS-1140 counted at least 10 units, all appearing to be military issue AN/PVS-14S. The compound's residents operated on a military-style schedule. Wake at 0530. Physical training, breakfast, work details including construction, equipment maintenance, and perimeter patrol. Firearms training 3 times per week. Evening briefings led by Greer, who the group referred to as the Sergeant. The briefings were recorded by CHS-1140 using the concealed device. In one recording from December 18, 2025, Greer outlined what he called Contingency Red, the compound's response plan if federal agents attempted entry. The plan included activating radio frequency jamming equipment to disrupt law enforcement communications, sealing tunnel access points, manning reinforced firing positions on the berms, and using tannerite charges as area denial weapons. Greer told his followers, "They come here, they enter a kill zone. We have the ground, we have the supplies, we can hold for months." CHS-1140's reports made one thing clear to the FBI. A standard warrant service, agents approaching the front gate with paperwork, would result in armed confrontation. The compound had been specifically designed to resist federal entry. January 2026. The FBI convened a multi-agency planning group at the Boise field office. Participants included FBI hostage rescue team planners, United States Marshals Service Special Operations Group, ATF Special Response Team, Idaho State Police Tactical Units, and DCIS investigators. The operational challenges were significant. The compound's jamming equipment could disable standard law enforcement radio frequencies. The tunnel system provided concealed movement between defensive positions. The berms and reinforced structures offered protection against standard tactical approaches. The tannerite, if assembled and detonated, could cause mass casualties. And there were 23 people inside. Some were armed ideologues prepared to fight. Others were family members, including, according to CHS-1140, 4 children between the ages of 6 and 14. The presence of children changed the calculus entirely. A direct assault risked their lives. An extended siege risked a catastrophic outcome like the ones that had defined previous sovereign-citizen confrontations. Ruby Ridge in 1992, Waco in 1993. The FBI had spent 3 decades developing protocols specifically to avoid repeating those disasters. The plan that emerged was designated Operation Iron Furrow Phase 2. It had 3 stages. Stage 1. Simultaneous service of 47 federal warrants. Arrest warrants for Greer and 6 identified co-conspirators, and search warrants for the compound structures, vehicles, electronics, and financial records. Stage 2. If resistance occurred, transition to a containment posture with negotiation as the primary resolution tool. Stage 3. Tactical entry only as a last resort, prioritizing the safety of non-combatants. The FBI's Crisis Negotiation Unit assigned a primary negotiator, Supervisory Special Agent Paul Dietrich, who had managed 17 prior barricade situations, including 2 involving sovereign citizen groups. Dietrich studied CHS 1140's recordings of Greer's briefings, building a psychological profile of the compound leader. What Dietrich found was not a deranged ideologue, but a calculated operator. Greer's language in the recordings was controlled, specific, logistical. He referenced supply chain management, defensive perimeter optimization, communication redundancy. He spoke like what he was, a career logistics non-commissioned officer, applying military doctrine to a civilian compound. This made Greer simultaneously more rational and more dangerous than a purely ideological leader. He could be reasoned with, but he had also prepared for every contingency the FBI might deploy. February 14th, 2026, 3 a.m. Mountain Standard Time. Temperature, 11 degrees Fahrenheit. Wind chill, -4. Ground frozen solid. The convoy staged 3 miles from the compound on a county road. 47 agents and 6 armored vehicles. FBI HRT operators in the lead. U.S. Marshals SOG in support. Idaho State Police providing outer perimeter security. An FBI mobile command post established at a fire station in the town of Mountain Home, 14 miles northwest. At 3:30 a.m., the convoy began its approach. 2 armored Bearcat vehicles moved toward the main access road. A third vehicle approached from a secondary ranch road to the east. At 3:42 a.m., the lead vehicle reached the compound's outer gate. An FBI agent activated the public address system. This is the Federal Bureau of Investigation. We have federal warrants for the arrest of Russell Greer and the search of this property. Open the gate and comply with all instructions. No response. At 3:44 a.m., the agent repeated the announcement. At 3:47 a.m., all tactical radio frequencies went dead. The jamming equipment Greer had described in his contingency red briefing was active. Every encrypted channel the FBI, Marshals, and state police were using became unusable. 47 agents across 6 vehicles and multiple positions lost the ability to communicate with each other and with the command post. For the first 36 hours, the FBI operated without reliable tactical communications at the compound perimeter. Agents reverted to hand signals, runners, and hardwired field telephones strung between positions. Technology from a previous century. Meanwhile, the compound went dark. Exterior lights extinguished. No movement visible. No response to repeated loudspeaker announcements. Thermal imaging from an FBI aircraft overhead detected heat signatures in the underground bunkers. The occupants had retreated below ground, exactly as contingency red dictated. February 14th, daylight. The FBI established a formal siege perimeter. Concertina wire at 200-meter standoff distance. Observation posts with spotting scopes and thermal cameras. Snipers in concealed positions covering the compound's 2 access roads and the main structures. The first communication from inside the compound came at 11:47 a.m. A handwritten note placed on the outer gate by a figure who emerged briefly and retreated. The note read, "We are sovereign citizens of the Idaho Republic. Your warrants have no jurisdiction. Leave or face consequences." Dietrich recognized the language. Standard sovereign citizen legal theory. The assertion that federal law does not apply to individuals who have declared themselves outside federal jurisdiction. Courts have rejected this argument consistently for decades, but for the people inside the compound, it was foundational belief. Dietrich drafted a response and had it delivered to the gate. He acknowledged Greer's position without validating it. He requested direct communication, a phone line or radio channel. He emphasized the presence of children and the FBI's desire to resolve the situation without harm. No response for 14 hours. February 15th, day 2. Temperature dropped to 6 degrees Fahrenheit overnight. FBI technical teams worked to counter the jamming equipment. The compound's jammer operated across a wide frequency band, disrupting VHF and UHF tactical channels. FBI electronic technicians from the Engineering Research Facility deployed directional antennas and frequency hopping systems that partially restored communications by mid-afternoon. At 4:22 p.m., a phone rang in the mobile command post. Greer had connected a landline telephone to a junction box at the property's edge. He was willing to talk. Dietrich answered. The first conversation lasted 47 minutes. Greer was calm, articulate, and firm. He stated that his group had committed no crimes, that the firearms were legally purchased, that the compound was private property, and that the FBI had no authority to enter. He made no threats. He asked no questions about the charges. Dietrich noted what Greer did not say. He did not mention the stolen night vision equipment. He did not mention the full auto conversions. He did not mention the tannerite. These were the items Greer knew were indefensible. The items that carried the heaviest federal penalties. Subscribe so you don't miss what comes next. We cover cases like this every week, February 16th through 18th, days 3 through 5. Negotiations continued. Dietrich spoke with Greer twice daily, sometimes for over an hour. Greer's demands were consistent: withdrawal of all federal personnel, recognition of the compound as sovereign territory, and amnesty for all occupants. These demands were non-negotiable from the FBI's perspective. Federal warrants had been issued by a United States magistrate judge. They would be served. But Dietrich's goal was not to win an argument. It was to keep talking. Every hour of dialogue was an hour without gunfire. Every conversation provided intelligence about conditions inside the compound. And every day that passed increased psychological pressure on the occupants, who were now confined underground with limited fresh air, no resupply, and the constant awareness of armed federal agents surrounding them. CHS 1140, still inside the compound, provided critical intelligence through brief, high-risk transmissions during moments when the informant could access an area outside the jamming field's effective radius. The informant reported growing tension among the occupants. Several members, particularly those with children, wanted to surrender. Greer and a core group of 6 loyalists refused. The compound's food supplies were extensive. CHS 1140 estimated enough stored food for 6 months. Water came from a well with an electric pump powered by the diesel generators. Fuel for the generators was the limiting factor. CHS 1140 estimated fuel reserves for approximately 3 weeks. The children were being kept in the deepest bunker, a concrete reinforced underground room approximately 20 by 30 feet. They had sleeping bags, stored food, and battery-powered lights. CHS 1140 reported that the children appeared frightened but physically unharmed. February 19th, day 6. A fracture appeared. At 9:14 a.m., a woman emerged from the compound carrying a 4-year-old child. She walked toward the FBI perimeter with her hands visible. Agents guided her to a safe area. She identified herself as Christine Parr, 31, the partner of one of the compound's residents. She told agents she had been living at the compound for 8 months and wanted to leave. Parr was debriefed for 6 hours. She provided detailed information about the compound's layout, confirming and expanding on CHS 1140's reports. She described the tunnel system, the armory contents, and the defensive positions. She also provided a critical detail. Greer had positioned the tannerite charges at 2 tunnel entrances, connected to electronic detonators he controlled from a central location in the main bunker. If the FBI breached the tunnels without disabling those charges, agents could be walking into 40 pounds of high explosive. February 20th, day 7. Dietrich used the information from Parr to adjust his approach. In his next call with Greer, he mentioned the children specifically. He described the resources available for families who exited the compound: temporary housing, legal representation, medical care. He did not mention Parr's debriefing or any intelligence she had provided. That afternoon, 2 more adults exited with 3 children, then a single male adult. By evening on day 7, 6 people had left the compound voluntarily. 17 remained inside. Greer's tone in his evening call with Dietrich shifted. He was shorter, more clipped. He accused the FBI of psychological warfare and said the departures were expected. The weak ones were always going to leave. But the departures had consequences beyond numbers. Each person who left reduced the compound's defensive capability, and each debriefing gave the FBI more intelligence about what remained inside. February 21st, Day 8. FBI technical teams completed full suppression of the compound's jamming equipment, using electronic countermeasures deployed by specialists from the FBI's Operational Technology Division. Tactical communications were restored across all channels. For the first time since the standoff began, the FBI had full command and control capability at the perimeter. Simultaneously, the FBI deployed ground-penetrating radar from positions near the compound's eastern perimeter. The radar mapped the tunnel system with enough resolution to identify the two tannerite positions Parr had described. The charges were located at the tunnel junctions, connecting the main bunker to the armory and to the secondary bunker. Greer had built his compound to be impregnable, but every defense has an assumption, and Greer's assumption was that the FBI could not get inside without coming through the tunnels or over the berms. There was a third way in. CHS 114 had identified it during orientation in December, a side gate on the compound's northern fence line, partially concealed by brush and used for foot traffic to a creek, where residents collected water. The gate was secured with a padlock, not an electronic lock. It was the compound's only access point, not covered by a reinforced firing position. February 22nd, Day 9, 11:30 p.m. CHS 1140 moved through the compound's underground corridors. Most occupants were sleeping. Greer was in the main bunker monitoring radio frequencies. 2 sentries manned the eastern berm. The northern fence line was unmonitored. At 11:47 p.m., CHS 1140 reached the side gate. Used a key obtained weeks earlier during a water collection detail. Turned the padlock. Opened the gate 6 inches. Left it ajar. Then walked back underground. February 23rd, Day 10, 3 a.m. An 8-person FBI HRT element moved on foot across frozen ground from a concealed position 400 meters north of the compound. No vehicles, no lights. Wearing AN/PVS-31 binocular night vision devices. Temperatures had dropped to 3 degrees Fahrenheit. Wind was minimal. At 3:12 a.m., the element reached the northern fence line. Found the gate ajar. Entered the compound's perimeter. The team split. 4 operators moved toward the tunnel entrance nearest to the side gate, a concealed hatch behind the ranch house that CHS 1140 had mapped in detail. 4 operators took positions covering the eastern berm sentries. At 3:18 a.m., the tunnel entry team opened the hatch. No alarm triggered. They descended into the tunnel system. The tunnels were narrow, approximately 4 feet wide, 6 feet tall, timber-framed walls, bare light bulbs on a wire currently extinguished. The operators moved using night vision in complete darkness. CHS 1140's maps were accurate. The team navigated past the first junction, avoiding the tunnel branch where tannerite charges were positioned. At 3:24 a.m., they reached the armory entrance. Inside, the FBI's primary objective? The weapons cache. But the team's mission at this stage was not seizure, it was reconnaissance and preparation. They confirmed the armory layout, verified the position of the tannerite detonation wiring, and identified that the wiring ran through a single conduit along the tunnel ceiling. One cut would disable both charges. An HRT operator severed the detonation wiring with insulated cable cutters at 3:31 a.m. The tannerite charges were now inert. 40 pounds of explosive rendered harmless in 2 seconds. The team withdrew through the tunnel and exited the compound by 3:50 a.m. Total time inside, 38 minutes. No shots fired, no contact with occupants. Greer did not know the FBI had been inside his fortress. February 23rd, 6 a.m. Dietrich called Greer for the morning negotiation session. This time, the conversation took a different direction. Dietrich informed Greer that the FBI had confirmed the presence of stolen military night vision equipment inside the compound. He stated that the charges Greer faced now included theft of government property, a federal felony. He stated that multiple compound members had provided detailed statements during their debriefings. Dietrich did not mention the tunnel breach. He did not mention the disabled tannerite, but he added a new element, a deadline. The FBI was prepared to wait, but the United States Attorney for the District of Idaho had authorized additional charges against every remaining occupant. For each day, they obstructed the execution of federal warrants. Every 24 hours increased the legal exposure for everyone inside. Greer asked for time to consult with his group. Dietrich agreed. He set the deadline for 6 p.m. February 23rd, 2:47 p.m., CHS 1140 transmitted a brief message. 6 of the remaining 17 occupants wanted to surrender. Greer and 4 core loyalists were refusing. The remaining 6 were undecided. 4:30 p.m. 8 people exited the compound. They emerged from the main gate in a line, hands visible, walking slowly toward FBI positions. They were processed, searched, and transported to the Ada County Jail in Boise. 9 people remained inside. Greer and his final core group. February 24th, day 11, 1 a.m. FBI HRT received authorization for tactical entry. The operation was designated Iron Furrow Final Phase. The plan used 3 simultaneous entry points. Team 1, the northern side gate through the tunnel system, now clear of explosive hazards. Team 2, the main gate, using a Bearcat to breach the vehicle barriers. Team 3, the eastern perimeter, crossing the berm at its lowest point. At 2:55 a.m., all 3 teams were in position. The mobile command post confirmed communications on all channels. Snipers confirmed visual on the compound. An FBI helicopter provided thermal overwatch. At 3 a.m., the operation launched. Team 2's Bearcat struck the main gate vehicle barrier at speed. The barrier, the steel post set in concrete, held for approximately 4 seconds before the armored vehicle pushed through. Simultaneously, flashbang grenades were deployed at the main gate and eastern berm. Team 1 descended into the tunnel system from the northern access point. Moving faster now, the route was known, the explosive threat eliminated. They reached the main bunker in under 3 minutes. Greer was in the main bunker with 3 others. He was seated at a table with a radio set, a laptop, and a holstered pistol. When the HRT operators entered with weapons raised and lights flooding the concrete room, Greer looked at the severed detonation wire running along the ceiling. He understood immediately what had happened. He placed his hands on the table. The 3 others followed. By 3:22 a.m., all 9 remaining occupants were in federal custody. No shots fired during the final entry. No injuries to agents or occupants. The compound search took 11 days. FBI evidence response teams working with ATF and DCIS investigators cataloged the contents of every structure, tunnel, and bunker. The armory contained 230 firearms. 14 rifles had been illegally converted to fully automatic fire using autosears machined in the compound's workshop. Ammunition totaled over 84,000 rounds across multiple calibers. 12 AN/PVS 14 night vision devices were recovered, serial numbers matching the Fort Liberty theft report. The 2 remaining stolen devices were traced to individuals in Montana and Oregon who had purchased them through Greer's network. 40 pounds of tannerite was seized, along with electronic detonators, blasting wire, and instructional materials on improvised explosive device construction. A TF classified the assembled tannerite with detonators as destructive devices under federal law. The cryptocurrency wallets, accessed through the laptop in Greer's bunker, contained $1.8 million in Bitcoin and Ethereum. The FBI's cryptocurrency unit seized the funds. Digital forensics on the laptop and multiple phones recovered from the compound revealed the full scope of the Western Shield network. Greer had recruited 147 paying members across 6 states. 23 had lived at the compound. The rest were remote members who received training materials, encrypted communications access, and priority placement for compound residency. The laptop also contained Greer's correspondence with 3 active-duty military service members at Fort Liberty, who had facilitated the night vision thefts in exchange for cryptocurrency payments totaling $42,000. All 3 were subsequently arrested by Army Criminal Investigation Division and face courts-martial. What was the detail Agent Kowalski noticed that first accelerated the case? It was the phrase, "legal separation from federal jurisdiction," in a telegram advertisement. 4 words that signaled an ideology, a network, and a threat that took 5 months and 47 federal agents to dismantle. Leave a comment. Do you think the sentences were proportional to the threat? Russell Greer was indicted on 26 federal counts including illegal possession of machine guns, possession of destructive devices, theft of government property, conspiracy, and obstruction. In March 2026, a federal grand jury in Boise returned the indictment. Greer faces a maximum of 135 years in federal prison. He has pleaded not guilty. Trial is scheduled for September 2026. 6 co-conspirators were indicted on related charges. 17 compound residents face lesser charges ranging from obstruction to illegal weapons possession. CHS-1140's identity remains classified. The informant was relocated under federal protection. The Western Shield Network's 147 members across 6 states are under investigation. As of April 2026, 31 additional search warrants have been executed in Montana, Oregon, Nevada, Washington, and Utah. 14 additional arrests have been made. The investigations are ongoing. Of the $1.8 million in cryptocurrency seized, $340,000 has been traced to sources that remain unidentified. The FBI believes at least one additional financing source, potentially a foreign entity, contributed funds to the network. That source has not been found. The 4 children recovered from the compound were placed in state custody. Their legal status is pending family court proceedings. The compound itself sits empty. 140 acres of frozen rangeland, concrete bunkers, and severed detonation wire. Elmore County has petitioned the federal government for the property's seizure and demolition. The FBI's Domestic Terrorism Operations Unit has noted a pattern. Since 2023, the number of fortified sovereign citizen compounds identified in the western United States has increased by 40%. Most are smaller than Greer's operation. Some are larger. The methods are similar: encrypted recruitment, cryptocurrency financing, military-grade equipment, and the conviction that federal authority is illegitimate. Operation Iron Furrow dismantled one compound. The movement that built it is still growing.